What's going on, YouTube? Last Musketeer here with part 2 of the Diablo Immortal free-to-play Is It Worth It series. So as we get into it, I'm just going to show you what my current gear is starting on day 2, and then at the end of the video I'll show you what I ended up with. Now this is the Elder Rift, which is the first time I'm going to be going into one of these, and I used the legendary crest that I got as part of the quest line introducing you to these. Now these legendary crests are great because they offer you a guaranteed legendary gem, which is going to be a big boost of power early on. When you put the crests in, you have a modifier. It could be a good modifier and they can come with bad modifiers. Sometimes two modifiers together can be very lethal for your account, and then other times you get some really good ones that guarantee basically that you will finish the rift. And I think that's a great idea. It's kind of a fresh take on rifting, because what I've seen from the game so far, I must say I am actually thoroughly impressed, because what they've essentially done is taken Diablo 3, its playstyle, its skill system, and kind of thrown it into this game. The art style, the skills from what I've seen so far, everything is kind of, it's all Diablo 3 based. And while it's obviously not as flashy, the combat isn't as smooth. Overall, it's just not as clean as Diablo 3. It is a mobile game, so you have to give it leeway in that. But I will say for sure that if you like this game and this is your first experience with Diablo, you will absolutely love Diablo 3, because it is this basically on steroids. Much better, better endgame, better story, but this is still very impressive. So I kind of take back a little bit of what I said early on, because I was a bit harsh on it. And yeah, I didn't get to see what the game kind of looked like on release, so I can't say that they've necessarily changed much or what, but if this is what it looked like on release, I will say it's not as bad as people made it out to be. Now, before you start lighting your torches and sharpening your pitchforks, just hear me out for a second. I've been a die-hard fan of this series for probably 20 years, and so everything I see as they add additions to these series, I'm going to be very critical of. This game does have its aspects that I don't like, but with that being said, I do believe that if you're skilled enough and you put enough time into the game, as a free-to-play player, you could possibly be one of the top players in the game. Now, I'm not going to say you're going to be at the top. You know, I can't guarantee any of that, but I do see, as I'm playing, that since there is a bit of a skill-based and a learning curve aspect to the game, you are going to be able to compete. Yeah, they may have better drop rate chances, so you're going to have to take that into account. One tip I will give, as this is so much like Diablo 3, I'm building my barbarian as a clumper. So essentially, I'm using Ancient Spear to pull in big clumps of enemies and then smashing them all out at once with a hard-hitting AoE ability or something like Whirlwind that hits everything at once, so I can clear them faster, and the faster I clear those, the more rifts I clear. The more rifts I clear, the more gear I get. So basically, there is a skill to this game. It is not just your regular hack and slash, just hope that you use strong enough abilities or hard-hitting gear. You have to kind of plan ahead. The more elites and rare mobs, like your blues, your yellows, that you can pull in, the more points they add to the timer. So essentially, you want to try to group these enemies into these rare mobs so that you can do as much damage as fast as possible. Skip the enemies that were then there's only 1 or 2 in an area, or maybe 3 even, because while each enemy does add points to the timer, the stragglers just kind of waste more time than they're worth. So essentially, clear large groups as fast as possible, progress faster. That's just one of my tips. If you want more tips, I can give them throughout videos as I think about them, but each class is obviously going to be different. Pick and choose what you want. Some classes have actually really good support setups. Barbarian's one of them. Diablo 3, I used to use what they called a Z-barb, which is a 0 damage barbarian, and all I would do would just clump enemies up and let my damage dealing team kill them. So that's always a good way to do your multiplayer settings, because I think multiplayer is a big facet of the game. Now I wanted to slow this one down because I do like the animations of it a lot. I thought not only the regular boss fight animations, but the after death animations were really cool. Now this is your bounty board at which you're going to get a large amount of your XP, because it is very crucial that you do all 8 of these each day. You are going to start hitting level caps where you have to be a certain level, where this one shows me reach level 35 for the next part of my mission. Very important that you do these because it's going to help you progress a lot faster. And this is actually my first legendary item in the game. I got Stonefall, which ups the damage of a Hammer of the Ancients, which I currently was using because it is a good source of killing off the clustered enemies really fast. So I equipped it with my legendary gem, and it helped me progress so much faster. Legendaries are always super important, even though the ability themselves may not be important for your build. The damage that they get is way better than the base of any of your other weapons. So now, this is part of a challenge rift. And the thing with challenge rifts is, where they differ from the regular greater rifts, is that these offer no experience per kill and no drops until the boss. So you may not get anything great out of that. The experience doesn't seem so far that great either, but the challenge rifts are very important for extra resources and stuff that you get from completing them themselves. Now so far for me, they haven't been that hard, but they do ramp up in difficulty quite a bit. So do keep in mind to do these as well as your Elder Rifts. Even if you're not getting great stuff out of them, they are very important towards progressing through the game. This for me was a bit of a nostalgia blast because I hadn't seen Belle since the DLC of Diablo 2. Obviously I put a lot of time into Diablo 2, so I'm very familiar with him, but it was an important figure from the earlier games that I hadn't seen in quite some time. They hadn't included him in Diablo 3, so you never saw him anymore. Of course, Diablo's in every single one of them, but his brother, one of the other primevals, Bale, is one that I've been waiting to see for quite some time. I'm sure Mephisto gets his place somewhere, maybe in Diablo 4. Hopefully I can look forward to fighting all the primevals again, but... So, of course, Bale's up to his usual antics of terrorizing the entire human population, so we're going to go ahead and take out the trash real quick, throw them in the bin. Now, something I liked, and this was in Diablo 3. In Diablo 3 it was called Conai's Cube, but essentially what you do is you take a legendary and you extract the ability from it, and what this does is allow you to inherit the ability, and there's a slot for each of your primary pieces of gear so that you can have extra legendary abilities while not actually wearing the equipment, thus making you a lot stronger as time goes on. And I'm just showing a quick clip of the current Christmas event where you send greeting cards to other players, and when you do so, you get gems as a reward, which I think is a pretty cool way of, kind of finding players that might want to play with you, or forming warbands, something like that. It's very cool. Now, overall, though, the events, I think, have been a little lackluster. There doesn't seem to be a lot of them. I'd like to have some type of maybe boss that you can only fight during that time, and maybe you can team up with other people to take on the boss. I think that'd be really cool, kind of like a world boss sort of style. But that being said, there is a coin in this Phantom Market where only one account can get it, so choose wisely which character you want to have this stuff. You'll draw, and over time you'll get more of them, and so you can get armor sets, armor pieces, maybe skins, stuff like that. It's really cool. I do like that. So it's free skins for everybody. Now, going into this, I'm just kind of showing some of the later rifts where I'm almost level 40. I've got 2 or 3 pieces of legendary gear, and I'm kind of changing around how my build is going, and maybe experimenting with some new ways to try to pump out damage. So obviously I haven't had enough time to kind of piece together what I think is the meta build, and here it was just a thing. I thought it was kind of cool. It was a debuff from the enemy I hadn't seen before, where you've got like this wind pushing you back, and it's kind of like a joke ability where it's like this wind pushes you, and I guess it's a bit of control from the enemy, but it doesn't seem to be all that detrimental. So almost goofy in a way, but of course, one of the first times I nearly die is obviously to a leech, which is kind of funny in its own regard. Fighting a primordial being with the powers to end humanity? That's just another day at the office. Fighting a leech, however, you're better off just curling up in the fetal position and dying. Now I wanted to leave this clip in because it's sort of like a boss rush. I'll have to fight 4 bosses in the scene, and it's kind of a great showcase of kind of what the boss fights look like in a way. They're not as fleshed out bosses, but it's still kind of a cool thing, so I'm going to let it play out and I'll meet with you after. Now the video is going to draw to a close here. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of what my gear looks like heading into day 8. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy, got a few gems. So we're getting there, slowly progressing towards endgame, and I'm going to leave it at that. So guys, thank you for your support. It's been The Last Musketeer, and I'll see you in the next one.